There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order to do side by side, let's go down and get to the meat of the problem. Let's see. There it is. Okay, you're already signed in. You already joined the meeting. Then you want to go to view options. You've gotten there already?
Yeah, I see that part.
Okay,
Yeah.
view options. There should be an option for you to side by side, and the side by side may not appear until I do a share. So try that again and see if it's there now.
Yeah, side by side mode is there and it is on.
Okay, good. So that's the method I know. Natasha, you know how to do it your way. So I don't argue with success. If it works, do it. So I'm going to unshare this. And now what I want to do is share the syllabus. And we'll use the syllabus to guide us through the introduction to the course. What I want to do is probably no later than 10 o'clock. I want to stop that and get to chapter 1. I just scheduled a discussion of chapter 1 for today so that we'd have enough time to do the introduction. So let me share the, let's see if I can find it. Blackboard syllabus. Show all windows. Well, I'm having trouble finding it. Is it up? Yeah, it's there. I just have to find it. Is this it? No, that's not it. Well, okay, so let's do this. 100. That's the wrong one. Yeah, this is the right one. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we got the syllabus up there shared. I'm going to minimize this. I better, before I forget, I better mark you guys present. And there. Okay. So I want to be sure also that I have, okay, I turned off the waiting room so anybody that shows up can just come on in. So I'm going to get that out of the way. Now, so this is an introduction to chemistry. So it's everything you need to know about chemistry in one semester, and there's no lab component. It's all lecture course. And on the first page of the syllabus, you'll see information over here to contact me. Now this Zoom at the bottom where it has a meeting ID right there, that's how you contact me during office hours, or if we schedule a private tutoring session. That's the ID for that one. There's a separate ID, which you really don't need to know. As long as you go into Blackboard and click on the Zoom link, then you'll automatically go to the right place. But if you happen to be in a remote location, you don't have access to your Blackboard, and you need to connect, say with your smartphone, then you'll need the Zoom ID. And I think I've got it down. That's homework, sorry. Here we go. So if you need to connect remotely, you can either use this link if you have access to the document in your phone, or if you just have the Zoom client loaded as an app in your phone, you can call up Zoom and connect to the meeting using this ID and this passcode, right? So we've started using passcodes, which is kind of like a password, to enter Zoom meetings, because several of our Zoom meetings have been bombed. So if you've ever been in a Zoom meeting that's been bombed, you'll know it. So this keeps out the riffraff by using that passcode. So you may want to keep that somewhere on your phone or on your laptop, so if you're in a remote location, you don't actually have to rush home to use your computer to get in, or if you don't have a laptop and just your phone, then you also have access to the course and you can attend that way. Okay, Zooming, we're going to meet from 9 to 11:50. So that's what, 3 hours, almost 3 hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You're going to need Cengage Unlimited, right? So once you buy Cengage Unlimited, if this is the only course that uses Cengage as a text, and you're not going to take any more Cengage courses, then you can buy just one semester. And that gives you the code that you need, the authorization that you need to sign up with Cengage homework for the course, right? And you need to connect from inside Blackboard, right? And we'll look at the Blackboard course in just a minute. I want to go over hit some highlights here. This is the hard copy.
You want us to get Unlimited, the Cengage Unlimited?
Yes. Or I just say that because it's simpler and it's in the bookstore. But if you buy Cengage outside the bookstore and you don't want to get the Unlimited, then you need to be sure that your purchase has a passcode in it, so that you can, when you register, when you go into Blackboard and you click on the Cengage link for the homework, then when they ask you for your code, you'll have it. Otherwise, if you do Cengage Unlimited, I don't think you need a code. It automatically knows, based on your name and email address that you use to make the purchase, it knows who you are, and you can register for the homework that way. If you have any trouble, I'm probably not your best source of information, but you can contact me and I'll put you in touch with the Cengage representative, and she deals with these things day in and day out, can fix your problem. Okay, if you like a hard copy, you can buy that, or once you're signed up with Cengage Unlimited, you can get a loaner for shipping, which is about $8, and you can get it for that semester, and then you just send it back to them. But you have the text with Cengage Unlimited. It's electronic, which is kind of nice actually, because you can search it. If you're looking for a topic, then you can search for it and you don't have to flip pages or look at the table of contents or whatever.
So is Cengage just a book, or they have our work and all that stuff on it?
Yeah, actually Cengage Unlimited gives you access to their entire published catalog. You can look at anything they have once you have Unlimited. So if you have other Cengage texts in other courses, once you buy Cengage Unlimited, you have access to anything they publish. Okay, so it's a pretty good deal, especially if you are enrolled in 2 or more courses that use Cengage. I think some of the math courses do. There are a couple of others. Okay, so you're going to need, obviously, you've got a web camera and a microphone, otherwise you wouldn't be connected. So that's a no-brainer there. But you will need a calculator. You need a scientific calculator. And even though I put these functions in here that your scientific calculator should have, if you purchase one that says scientific on the case, it will have everything you need. All you need to do is learn how to use it, learn where the functions are. And these particular functions I identified are the ones you need to focus on. How to do scientific notations, set up your display so it will give you answers in scientific notation. How to do roots, square roots. I don't think we're going to need anything more than that. How to do powers, how to input scientific notation, right? How to put the coefficient in plus the power of 10, because every calculator is different. How to use logs, you know, where's your log key, and how your calculator wants you to input and process logs. And then 10 to the x. Why did I put 10 to the x in here? 10 to the x is also known as anti-log. So if you know the log of the number, but you want to know the number that the log was taken of, then you use 10 to the x. So has everybody had a basic math course? I hope you have.
Yes.
Okay. So you will, I hope you will remember doing logs in your class and what a log means. At the point where we actually use logs in the course, I'll go back, I'll explain it again. So it'll refresh your memory. But you need to learn how to use these things in your calculator, because I'm not going to spend any time teaching you how to use your calculator because there's so many different kinds and flavors. In fact, the calculator I use, very few people use it. It operates on a principle called reverse Polish notation. Whereas most calculators now that are sold are algebraic. They say, you put in the number, put in the operator like 1 times, and then you put in the second number, and then you say equal. And those are the keystrokes that you do. But for mine, it's different. So let's move on. Okay, next point's the course outline. Of course, that's required information. Regular exams. The exams you will find in Blackboard, but you won't be able to access and take the exam in Blackboard until you turn on the lockdown browser, Respondus Monitor lockdown browser. And there's an appendix at the back that tells you how to load that up and get ready. And there's a practice exam also that you have to take. And I'll show you that in Blackboard. So let's not spend a whole lot of time in the syllabus. I'll just hit the high points, and then we'll go into Blackboard, and that's where you'll actually see where you do things. The syllabus is basically a contract between me and you. This says what I'm going to do for you, and this is what says you're going to do for me, so that I can give you a passing grade. So there, exams, there will be a final exam. Homework, and this describes some things about the homework that's administered through Cengage. And this, I like to say also that the syllabus is the hard-nosed version of the course. In other words, these set the most restrictive limitations in the course. Now, during the course, I can relax those, but if you have kids of your own, or if you know people who have kids, they will tell you first thing that when you set up rules for your children, you always make them strict to begin with. You can always relax the rules later, but you can never tighten them up. Once they're loose, then it's all over with. So this is the very strictest interpretation of the course is in the syllabus. And then I can relax later as required. So it gives me some leeway to make adjustments and accommodations if necessary. Let's see. Okay, so here's how the grades are determined. Your exams account for 57%. The chapter exams account for 57% of your average. The final exam is worth 13%. So taken together, what's that? 70% is based on exams. Homework is 20%. And then you get credit for showing up. So if you attend, you get 9% of your grade there. And then there's a syllabus test that's built into Blackboard, and I'll show you where that is. And that's worth 1%. That's almost a gimme. I mean, if you read through the syllabus and you read the questions and you locate the answers in the syllabus, then there's no reason why you shouldn't get at least 100% on the syllabus test. And in fact, there is a bonus in the syllabus test, so you could get more than 100%. Here's the next most important item, is the course schedule. This tells you what we're going to do on each day and when the due dates are. So here's today, and we're doing class business right now. We're going to get into chapter 1. It's a really short chapter, so we should be in good shape. And then on Thursday, we're going to hit chapters 2 and 3. And then those first 3 chapters are part of the materials for the first exam. Now, if we need to, I built in buffer days, right? So if we don't finish, we'll probably finish chapter 2. If I run long, then I can finish chapter 3 on the 26th of January, following Tuesday. And then I've set aside a review day. So that's when we discuss problems that you might be having with, say you're working homework problems, or you're using the review document that I'll show you in a few minutes in Blackboard that gives you other problems to work. And if you have difficulty, the review day is when we cover those and iron out the rough spots. And then the following Tuesday on February 2nd is when the homework is due for those 3 chapters, and when the first exam is due. Now, since the homework is done through OWL on Cengage and the exam is done through Blackboard, we're not going to take class time for those. You can do those whenever you feel ready, right? If you want to wait till we finish the reviews to take the exam, that's fine. You got between Thursday and the next Tuesday to do that. Anytime that you set aside and it's convenient for you and your schedule, you can do these, finish these up. What we'll actually be doing on that day is not the exam, but we'll be covering these topics, chapter 4, chapter 5, with a buffer day built in following there. So we'll probably do chapter 4 one day and chapter 5 the next. And that's the pattern for the whole semester. I've put in other items of interest, like here's the spring break, right? Here's when mid-semester grades are due to the registrar. So you know what grades go into the average for the midterm grade. Everything up through exam 4 will be averaged into your midterm grade. But those are due on that Monday, and we're in the middle of spring break for that week. So that's why I grade those out. We're not going to be here on those days. Then we pick it up again after that. Here's another important day. I hope no student has to use these, but this is for your information. If you need to withdraw for any reason and you want to preserve your opportunity to make a good grade at some other time, say take it later, then this is the last day for you to withdraw with a W, a withdraw in your records. You don't get an alphabetic grade for that if you can withdraw before then. Now, I hope by that time you'll know whether you feel comfortable with the course and you're moving along well. This schedule is also designed to show you whether you're making significant progress, whether you're moving along. It'll tell you pretty quickly whether you're falling behind or not. So we're going to cover chapters 1 through 5, and then notice they go out of order. Chapter 8, then we go back to chapter 6 and 7. I do that because items that are covered in chapter 8 are essential for those covered in 6 and 7. I think the authors made a boo-boo there. They put those things out of order. So I switched the order so that we'd be sure and cover topics that you need to complete these other chapters. And then we skip over chapters 10, 11, and 12 and move on to chapter 15. Then we go to 13, 16, and 18. And then we're done. The final exam, the college is still publishing exam schedules, but under these circumstances, everybody's online. So under these circumstances, we can take the final exam whenever we want. So I just made it the last, what would be the last scheduled day. That Thursday, the 13th of May, will be the final exam. And then I have to turn the grades in on May 17th. Now your homework, I've already turned it on. You can get into Cengage and register. And I've made it available up through the 16th of May. So you can go through the 16th to finish your homework. And since the grades are automatically graded and reported to me, there's no additional time on my behalf. So I figure I'll give you as much time as possible, right up to the very end if you need it. Okay.
With the homework, doesn't it open once you finish it? Like once you do homework 1, then homework 2 will open. Then
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and they'll remain open. In Cengage, you'll notice that the start date and the end date are the beginning and end of the course. I've tried putting more restrictive due dates on the Cengage homework. And what it does is, once that due date is passed, you can't access the homework. So if you finish it, you can't go back and look at it for review. So I just made the start and end dates for every homework assignment are the beginning and the end of the semester. So that way you can go back and look at it if you want. The actual due dates are in this schedule here. Right there. It's kind of hard to see my cursor, so I'll swirl it around and see if it'll catch your eyes and show me where you're going. Okay, so let's see. There are a couple of bonus projects at the beginning of the course, and I'll show those to you in Blackboard, where you can earn extra credit, which may come in handy later. Makeup testing is irrelevant. I mean, you just take the exam when you're ready. In fact, the exams have time limits, but once the time limit is expired, they don't shut you down. You can keep working if you need to. It just tells me that you ran over, and that gives me an idea of what I should do next time. You know, maybe I made the time limit too short. Or if everybody finishes in 15 minutes and I gave you 2 hours, then I gave you too much time. The only thing is, if you go past the time limit, then the grade is not automatically reported in your grade book. If you finish before the time, it'll grade it and put it in your grade book. But if you go past the time, it forces me as the instructor to review it and accept it, and then it shows up in your grade book. When you take the exams, you can use your scientific calculator, keep it with you. You can keep scratch paper, you know, because you may have to work a problem and then put the answer in. But you shouldn't have anything else with you. Any extra information that you need, I have provided in Blackboard, and I'll show you where that is. I call it useful information, so that you don't have to memorize the world to take an exam. If you misplace your scientific calculator, once you go into Respondus Monitor in the lockdown browser, at the top you'll see a scientific calculator button. So you can open a scientific calculator that's built into the system right there. Let's see. What happens if your exam shuts down? They say if you lose your internet connection or the power goes out, which it can do in the winter especially, I'll need to reset the exam for you so you can take it. Go back and take it again once your power or your connection is restored. The problem is when I reset an exam, it wipes out all of your answers. So it's probably a good idea for you to keep track of your answers. The only big problem there is that the questions are randomized. Each time you restart the exam, they're in different order. So you need some way to keep track of them so that you know which answer goes where. It may be that all you have to do is just keep a list of the answers. And then since it's multiple choice, the questions are multiple choice, you just look at the available answers and then you look down your list and see the one that matches one that's there. That's one possibility. But let's hope that you don't lose your power. If your internet connection is good and your power is reliable, then that's a non-issue. Okay, so let's see all of that. And then we have the appendix here. This is for setting up your OWL homework, right? And this is not necessarily our course. It's just a screenshot I took from an earlier course, right? But it'll look generally like that. And I'm going to let you read through this. The instructions are nauseatingly detailed. What you'll notice is for the homework chapter 1, it's the only one that is called mastery. And when you go in and look at the homeworks, they should have a little parenthetical remark saying graded or ungraded. The graded ones are just what they say. They're the ones that are graded. They're the ones that go into your homework grade. The ungraded ones are there for you to access extra information, okay, or practice tests. On chapter 1, the graded one is called a mastery, right? And it uses this format. But everything after that is end of chapter. And those questions look like those at the end of each chapter. So they should be fairly self-explanatory. It's this mastery one that is sometimes difficult. And I think the first chapter is pretty simple. You can do that one in 10 minutes probably. Okay. Also, you'll notice that in the Cengage homework, each time you open up the homework, there should be a selection at the bottom of the page where you can contact your instructor. So if you have a specific question about that problem that you're working on, you can contact me and it will reference that problem in the email that it sends me. Then I'll know in advance what your situation is, and I can respond either in OWL or contact you via email. Okay, this one has to do with Zoom, so you already know about that. This one is how you get Respondus Monitor Lockdown Browser on your computer. You're going to need a connection. You're going to need a computer. You can even use a Chromebook or an iPad or an Apple. Should work. There might be some slight differences. But I think I put details in here that are particular to each one. And what you need to do in order to, well, I have a link in here. Whenever you see a link in a Word document like that, notice that it doesn't change to a cursor, I mean a pointer. If you hold down the Control key, then you can click it and it'll take you to that connection. But in order to get the lockdown browser on your computer, you need this link right here. Right? That is specific to New River. That link will allow you to download the lockdown browser app and install it on your computer. Any other link will not work. Okay, so here's some details. There's your iPad, which I assume would be good for Apple also. Let's go on to Blackboard, and there's a reference to the practice test. The practice test is not graded, or if you get a grade, you can ignore it. You just need to use, when you do lockdown browser exams in Blackboard, you're going to need a password or a pass number, and that is the CRN number for the course. Right, so that's all you have to remember there, 22927. So when it asks you for a password, that's what you put in. Okay, so let's close this. Let's stop the share and go to Blackboard. I got a few more minutes before I have to cut this off. So let's go to, let me share the Blackboard course, if I can find it. No, that's not it. Okay. What's this one? I don't think that's it either. Scroll down. There we go. Scroll down to wherever the Blackboard is. Inbox. Okay, I'm going to have to do I have my desktop? I can share my desktop. Well, this is problematic. Not that one. All right, hold on a second. Let me minimize this. And I'm going to close down some things because they're confusing. All right. Close that. I'm going to close this. And okay, that's done. I had something going on in the background. That's closing that one. Okay, now let's see. Let's do that one. Okay, that should show up. Now if I try to share, hopefully I'll see it. Here we go. Okay, does everybody see the New River landing page? Okay, good. Okay, now you obviously know how to get into Blackboard, so I won't belabor that. But while we're here, if you go into My New River, I think that gives the students access to various things. And I'm not sure exactly what they are, but because the instructor's version is a little bit different. But that's a good place to know. And then Blackboard, of course, here. And then we go to the course. Yes.
No, that was my son talking. Sorry.
Oh, so you muted. That's okay. It's okay to mute. Okay, so here's the course. I've got a whole bunch of courses listed in there. You should find just a few. And this is what it looks like from the instructor's perspective. So what I'm going to do is go into student preview mode. There, that will eliminate all the instructor's garbage and let you see what it looks like from the student's perspective. In the syllabus folder, of course, you're going to see the syllabus and my schedule. Right? So you just, you can print that off. There's my schedule. It shows my office hours and all these other blocks in here, except for that one. Fridays are a little trouble, so try to stay in Monday through Thursday. We can schedule meetings in these time slots. Now I say that, but it's going to take me the first couple of weeks during these office hour times that I've got to go over to campus and cut some demonstration videos for other classes. So the first 2 weeks are going to be a problem. But after that, office hours should be chiseled in stone. And all you have to do is link to this Zoom ID and I'll be there. Hold on just a second. I need to take this call. Hello? LabCorp. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. I had to get in on that call. Okay, so there you have access to the schedule. And let me see, where am I? It's been difficult. Close that. Okay, now we're back in the student view. All right. So notice at the top you have these breadcrumbs. So you can always back out. So let's go back out to start here. That's where you go for everything. Just start here. There are some other quick connections over here on the left, like this email. If you want to email individual students in the course or the whole class, you click on that and you can send out emails to your class. You just can't receive them here. You have to go into your email, whatever you use to access your emails in order to receive emails. But here you can send anything, and I use this a lot because that way I don't have to dig through the list of everybody in the school, in the college, to find my students. There's your Zoom connection. You got some tools. So let's go down here. You might need a PDF reader, right, to read Acrobat files. This will give you access to, you can use either one. Adobe Acrobat, you can download a free version. You just have to be careful because they'll want to sell you something. So be sure you get the free version. Foxbit is another PDF reader, and they'll want to sell you something too. But you be sure you get the free version. And when you install it, don't install spam that comes with it, because a lot of these places will attach things, and if you're not careful, you'll install stuff that you don't want. Okay, so here's the course schedule duplicated from your syllabus. All right, so there you have it free and easy. Here's how you connect to your homework. One way to connect to the homework. There are also other OWL connections scattered throughout, so you don't have to back out to get to them. Here are some links to helping you get started with Cengage. You can view those videos. Direct connection to your ebook. This is important, lessons and reviews. This will have in it, for each exam, it's subdivided. If you go into each one for each exam, what you'll find is information for chapter 1, this chapter 2, chapter 3. What's inside those folders, you'll see is the PowerPoints, right? So the PowerPoints that I use to guide my lectures are here. And you'll see there are 3 different flavors. This one is the PowerPoint version, the PPT or PPTX extension. So if you have Microsoft Office, which everybody should have, you can load this, download this, and view the PowerPoint slides. And they'll have everything there. This is a PDF. So suppose you're out somewhere and you need access, but you don't have the device you have doesn't have PowerPoint on it as an app. You can look at the PDF. The PDFs cut out all the animations and videos, so you won't have those. If you have access to a browser, then this HTML5, which is the browser language, this version will give you the PowerPoint slides inside your browser, and you'll get all the videos, all the animations, everything from this one. I've used that sometimes when I couldn't get my PowerPoints to work in class. I would just go in and load this up and finish the lecture. But that's the general form that each one of these folders will take, these 3 folders here. Now, what you'll also notice is there are already videos posted, but these are from previous semesters, and they cover these topics, right? These lectures and the review cover the topics in the past, right? The video quality may not be as good, but it may take slight jigs and jags here and there, but in general, all the topics in the chapters are covered in these previous ones. So if you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait for the recorded video from the current semester, then you can always go in and look at these and get, well, you can look at those too and get a different perspective. Here's a homework connection, right? So you just click on these. It takes you directly to chapter 1 homework. This one takes you directly to chapter 2 homework, so forth and so on. That's once you're registered, of course. You may not need these end of chapter solutions. That's only if you go to the textbook and you look at the problems at the end of the textbook chapter, then these are the solutions to those problems, right? So you get those. If you want to work extra problems at the end of the chapter, then you've got those solutions to help you guide understanding of where you may have gone wrong. Review documents. These review documents I created for my in-seat class, right? I post them in Blackboard, and what they'll be is they'll have the look and feel of an in-seat exam. So this is what one looks like. See, it just looks just like an exam. Multiple choice. Sometimes they're a short answer, fill in the blank. Those give you extra problems and questions to work and answer. And I find that the more problems you work, the better your understanding of chemistry. Oh, excuse me, let me go back. That was the unanswered document. This is the key to that one. And then occasionally, well, after this one, I don't don't put it in this one, but after this one, I'll also add a, let's see if I've got it in, let's go down to maybe, review. No, we don't have them in this one. Okay, I'll have another document that's worked problems. So instead of just the key, I'll also include a document that is in my handwriting where I work every problem that's in the review document. So you can see how I work the problems. It's not the only way to answer the questions and work the problems, but it's the way I did it. And you'll also notice that sometimes you have these other documents in here, the periodic table with charges, right? So there's your periodic table. We'll learn how to read those. I think now the periodic table has all of these guys down here filled in with names, right? These are just placeholders. But now we've got names for everything. 109, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 118 elements. They've all got names now. But this is an old periodic table. But it should work fine for learning the symbols. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And I'm running out of time, so let me move along here. Okay, so those review documents give you extra practice. You also have practice tests that you can take here in Blackboard and give you experience in Blackboard. These you access directly from this browser. You don't have to go to Lockdown Browser. Lockdown Browser is only for exams. Okay, so let's back up. And, well, I'll say it now. Your two best indicators of how you're doing, of how to do well in chemistry, are curiosity. If you have a curious nature and you want to know how something works, why it works, that's to your benefit. And your other good friend is boredom. If you work problems and work enough of them, eventually you're going to start repeating yourself and working problems that you've seen before. And that leads to boredom. If you're bored working problems, that's a good sign. That means you're familiar with them, you know them well, and you want to move on to something else. And if you run into those problems on an exam, something clicks and you're ready to go. So curiosity and boredom are your friends. Okay, let's see, what else? Did I miss anything? Okay, no, I didn't miss anything there. So let's go back out. That's lessons and reviews. And that for each exam, they're set up that way. So let me go down to one of these later ones, like gases. So when you go into, let's see, is it homework? No, not homework, excuse me. Let me back out. Homework, practice tests, must be in here. Here we go, review documents. So when you go into these review documents, you'll find here are some worked problems. Okay. One thing you'll also notice is that, let's call up one of these review documents. Okay. All right, here we go. Now let's scroll down to the bottom. Let's see, let's go down to the bottom. Here we go. At the bottom of every review document is a list, several pages of useful information. This information here, right? There are conversion factors, values that you may need, formulas, equivalencies, right? Those things are there so that you don't have to memorize them. Polyatomic ions, I know this doesn't mean anything right now, but it will. Various things, and you'll always have a periodic table. Now, if these items, if these pages, I see we got somebody showing up. Let's see, here we go.
Hello, Professor. I'm sorry I'm late. I was having some technical difficulties.
Okay. This whole meeting is recorded. So once I get it posted in Blackboard, you'll be able to go view it and see anything that you missed.
Okay, thank you.
I was just showing the class that in these review documents, this useful information at the end of the review document is something that I reproduce in the folder that has for the exams. So you have access to that information in Lockdown Browser. Now let me go back. Let's see. Let's go back here. Back up again, excuse me. Okay, exams are in a different folder. Pardon me. These are just lessons and reviews, right? So this is all the information you need to to master the material. So let's go back out, and there's a folder down here for exams. Now the thing is that each exam opens in sequence. In other words, you can't take them out of sequence. Once you complete the syllabus test, which is where is it? I think it's in the exams, excuse me. Once you complete the syllabus test, here we go. And you can take this one in the native browser. You don't have to have Lockdown Browser to take this one. Once you complete the syllabus test, a grade will show up in your gradebook. And the next exam is keyed to the one before it. So that once you complete one, the next one will open up. It'll be available. But this one, look, when I call up exam 1, there's no exam there because I haven't completed the first one. But the useful information is there. So, and I'm trying to think, once you go into Lockdown Browser, I think this will be available in the Lockdown Browser because it's there in Blackboard. Right? If it's not, please let me know. Because you should be able to open this in another window. You just right click it and then open link in a new tab. Right? And there it goes. And there's your useful information that you can reference during the exam. That's kosher. Anything that's in that folder with the exam, you can use. You won't be cheating if you use it, okay? But the exam, if I were to, excuse me, if I were to close exit preview, okay, take it just a second. And then if I go back to exams as an instructor, I should see those exams there. So I can show you what they look like. Okay, so there's exam 1. Okay, there it is. There's the exam. So when you go into Lockdown Browser and you've completed the syllabus test, then it'll open that up for you and you'll have access to it. So then all you have to do is click on this, and then you can start the exam when you're ready. Once you start the exam, it'll tell you there's a timer, I think. You have an hour. An hour should be plenty for this first one. And then don't forget to submit at the end. Okay. So let me go. I'm going to stay in instructor mode because there may be some other things that I need access to that won't show up in the student mode. So let me cancel that test. And let's go back out to exams. And you'll see a folder for each one. Right? And some of them will have more information than others. Like for this one. Well, there's useful information. Let's see what it says. Okay, several pages. So you've got that one. I extracted these from that document we were looking at earlier. You have access to all that information during the exam. Okay, I'm past 10 o'clock, so let me see what else we need to do. Exams, start here. Okay. There are some links to self-help. I'll let you look at those yourself. Khan Academy is a good one. There are a couple of others in there that can help you. These are just odds and ends, stuff that you can either take or leave. Helpful hints, balancing equation, chemical equations, that's particular for that chapter. And this stuff grayed out, you won't see. Okay, so when you go into your, let's see, are there any questions? Okay, I think this link is a video on installing Respondus Monitor Lockdown Browser. There's your practice test. So when you open up your lockdown browser, then you go to this one and take this test. And what it does is there's just one question in there, and it doesn't matter. You can give it any answer. It's even if it tells you it's a wrong answer, it doesn't matter. This is just to be sure that your equipment is set up right, that you have everything you need, so that when you go in and actually start an exam, you're not fumbling around. You've already checked out your equipment and access so that you know things are going to work. That's what this practice test is for. And in fact, until you take the practice test, the first exam won't open up, I don't think. No, it will. It's the syllabus test. Excuse me. Syllabus test is keyed for that one. Practice test is independent of anything else. Okay, so I'm going to stop this share. All right. Oh, Brett, do you have you set up, are you looking at side-by-side?
What is it, Professor?
Okay, side-by-side means that you have half of your screen. You can size it to set up so that I'm on half of your screen and anything that I'm sharing is on the other half.
Oh, yes, I'm on that.
Okay, good. Because I want you to be able to see this whiteboard clearly. In addition to the PowerPoint slides that I'm going to share, because sometimes I talk with my hands right here. And the whiteboard that's built into Zoom is really clunky. So I don't use it. I use this. Okay, so now what I want to do, we're not in too bad a shape. In about 45 minutes, I should be able to cover chapter 1. So let me share. I've already got, I think, the PowerPoint slides up. Here they go. There we go. Everybody see my PowerPoint slides? Okay. Yes. And one other thing I need to check. Let's see. Which is, you should see on your screen up in the corner, maybe it says REC recording, or maybe somewhere in the corner. Okay, good. As long as we're recording, because sometimes I forget to start the recording. What I'm trying to do now is just automatically start the recording when I open up and just let it go. And I'll edit out the fluff later, because I'd hate to go through all this and not have it recorded. Okay, so let me start the slideshow and we'll talk about chapter 1. Come on. Start the slideshow. There we go. Okay. So you'll notice that this front cover of the textbook doesn't look anything like the one that you've purchased. This is because these are old slides that I've been modifying over the years, and I can't bring myself to go to a newer set of slides and have to edit the whole thing over again the way I like them. So this is 7th edition slides, but the information hasn't changed in 60 years. All right, so even though it looks different, it's not different. That's Grumpy Cat. Everybody remember Grumpy Cat passed away a couple of years ago. Poor thing. Okay. So these are the 3 chapters we're going to cover. Just an introduction. Then we're going to look into measurements and how to do calculations. And then we're going to look at the concept of matter. And those 3 chapters are part of our first exam. All right. That's just an outline. We'll skip over that. So you ever wonder, here's where curiosity comes in. If you are inherently a curious person, you are at an advantage in chemistry. Curiosity is your best friend. If you see something, if you make an observation in nature and you wonder why, that's the first thing that pops into your head is, why does that happen? You've got the makings of a scientist at the very least, and maybe even a chemist. Now, be sure that I'm not trying to turn everybody into a chemist here. I'm trying to give you an appreciation for what chemistry can do, what it has done in the past, and it gives you a different way of looking at the world. Actually, a more complete, a more rational way of explaining why things happen. And that's very satisfying to someone like me, because I'm inherently curious. For instance, if you see fireworks, you see different colors, right? So if you're not a curious person, you just sit there and enjoy the show. Right? Ooh, big blast, lots of colors and lights and sparks and everything, and you go home happy. If you're a curious person like me, you're wondering what causes those colors. You know, why does this one go red? Why is that one? Why are so many of them not blue? Most of them are reds and yellows and whites. Very few of them are blue. So that makes me think, you know, what's special about blue? Is it difficult to make blue? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. Greens are sometimes, greens are even worse. But we want to start off by now asking, why is chemistry important? I mean, you always wonder, even a non-curious person wants to know, why am I in this course? I mean, maybe it's it's sufficient that, well, if I don't take this course, I can't do anything else, right? It's part of the program, right? And that's a valid reason. But I want to talk about, why is chemistry itself important for us in everyday life. Most of the materials in your house are man-made, except for things like wood floors, right? Or maybe the joists in your floors and ceilings, the studs in your walls, they're probably all wood, right? So they're not, technically speaking, man-made. Although I used to work in a building where the studs in the walls were metal, right? That were man-made. But a lot of the materials in your house are going to be man-made, especially the plastics, right? I've got a big printer sitting over here. It has some metal parts in it, but it's mostly plastic. The plastic is an entirely man-made material. And these are new materials, right? Before the 20th century, plastics were unheard of, right? They were starting to experiment with polymers. They just didn't understand them. So new materials are a consequence of understanding and applying chemistry. Pharmaceuticals. Oh man, we would really be in a world of hurt if we didn't have chemists, biochemists in particular, working on developing new drugs, because the quality of life would be brutish and brief, like the Middle Ages, if we didn't have drugs, pharmaceuticals. They prevent diseases, cure diseases, make you feel better, right? Allow you to function at a higher level. We wouldn't have those if it weren't for chemistry. We've been looking for new energy sources since man figured out how to use fire. New energy sources have always been in the forefront. Without energy, you cannot progress. So we went from burning wood or burning animal fats. And then we progressed to fossil fuels, right? We found coal in the ground, peat, oil, gas, fossil fuels, which are still the main energy source for modern civilization. If you do away with those now and try to go completely green, the world economies will collapse. I guarantee it. But we do have new energy sources. There are some that are supposedly non-polluting, and we'll talk about that later. Nuclear energy, right, has gotten a bad rap over the years, but it's coming back. And these are all chemistry related. Food supply, right? If you go back in history, you'll find in the, probably starting in the late 30s, but certainly into the 60s, we were in a green revolution, and not in terms of energy, but in terms of cultivating plants. We were developing cultivars of various plants like wheat and rice, grain crops, that could stand up in harsher weather, survive under harsher conditions, like if the soil became salted. Some plants you can still grow there. If your water supply is limited, some plants do much better, if you have the right cultivar, will survive in lower moisture regimes. And that adds to productivity and allows us to make more food on fewer acres, so we can feed larger populations. And the world population is still growing, right? So that is a continuing effort, food supply. And whenever possible, right, even those that are labeled as uncaring about the environment, still very often return to environmental considerations, even if they're not dictated or mandated by law. Sometimes maintaining the environment in maybe not a pristine, not the way it was before you entered, but to restore it partially is good business. We could probably think of some others, but running out of time. So let's move on. So there are certain principles of chemistry, and I'll say this at the very beginning. What you see around you, the way nature works from a chemist's perspective, is nature does its thing. And what we do in the sciences is try to understand it. So we create categories, we create laws, we create principles that can be applied to nature that help us understand it. But those principles that we develop are not what nature is doing. Nature just does what it does. These principles are what we develop so that we can understand it. All right, so there's that dichotomy between what is and what we think is. Hopefully you'll become a better problem solver, right? And the first thing you do when you're presented with a problem is what? Well, what's the problem? You know, what is the question that needs to be answered? That's the first thing you do. If you don't know what the question is, you can't find the answer, right? And that works in real life. That works in artificial environments like exams. What's the question? Then we're going to learn ways to solve problems in a chemical environment. You know, relative to chemistry, how do we solve these various problems? Okay, in its simplest form, chemistry is a science that deals with substances, things that you can manipulate, you can touch, feel, see, hear things that happen, even taste it in some cases. And these substances undergo changes. And we want to know, how does that happen? Why does it happen? Because we have one material here with certain characteristics, and a process occurs and it ends up over here as something different. How did that happen? That's chemistry. That's why we call it the central science. Of course, there's some prejudice there. Chemists think they have the central science, the answer to everything. A physicist will say chemistry is just applied physics. Right? Biologists are the same way. They think that theirs is the way to answer questions. But chemists will just say that biology is applied chemistry. So the beat goes on. So how do we solve problems? The scientific approach is usually you make an observation. You see something that piques your interest. And that requires you to state the question. You know, why does it happen? Or just how does it happen? Maybe that's all you want to know. So you state the problem clearly. That's part of the scientific approach. And just for your information, the scientific approach is a subcategory of critical thinking. So in other courses that aren't science related, you may be introduced to the concept of critical thinking, and what you learn in the sciences can help you in those courses, but they're with certain modifications. But the scientific approach is, what's the problem? That's the first question you ask. After you've made an observation, you want to state the problem. And then we propose possible solutions, that is, answers to the question, right? And the fancy word for that is hypothesis, right? If this, then that, or this, and that's why. Stated clearly. Clarity is always first and foremost in the sciences. Formulate your hypothesis. What do you think is causing this? That's a possibility. And then you have to decide, is that a reasonable explanation? Does that answer fit the question by way of the hypothesis? And the way you do that is experiment. You say, if I devise this experiment under these conditions, we call it testing the hypothesis. You test the explanation. If my hypothesis is right, and I have this experiment, and it gives me these results, and I predicted those results, then we say that your hypothesis is confirmed. But you don't stop there, right? Because with every answer comes 3, 4, 10, 20 questions more. So we develop a method, a framework of gaining and organizing knowledge. What we know now in chemistry, in the sciences in general, has been accumulated over centuries of investigation. Lots of false starts, lots of wrong turns. And if nothing else, the scientific method is there to bring people back to reality. right? It's okay to let your mind go and think of different solutions to problems, as long as you test them and you see if they fit the conditions. Remember, nature does what it does. We say this is why we think it happens, but if it doesn't fit with nature, you've got to change it, throw it out, or modify it some way. So what's the framework? It's a plan of action, right? So we need a plan of action, and here it is in a schematic form, right? There's your observation, there's your hypothesis, and you know, why did it happen? I observed this, now why? There's your experiment. And you can go round and round and round in that one till the cows come home. But eventually, you've got to draw something out of all of those experiments that pulls them all together. And it may take hundreds of them to do that. It may take only a few. Depends on the problem. Now, what can you get out of that process, that circular process? You can either get a law or you can get a theory. So there's a difference. What's a law? A law just summarizes what happens. If I set up these conditions, run the experiment, this will happen. I don't have a clue why it happened. But it happens this way every time. That's a law. Like the law of gravity. If I jump off a tall building, what's going to happen? I'm going to fall until I hit something, right? That's a law. We don't know why gravity works according to that law, but it works. That's why a law just says what happens. That's it. It could be something equally as simple as an equation, right? So this equation is Newton's second law of motion. And it just says that for a mass of a certain size subjected to a force of a certain size will produce acceleration. That's all it says. It doesn't say why it happens, it just says this is how it happens, right? So a law can either be just a general statement, or it can be a formula, or it can be a combination of both. So the hypothesis is a potential explanation, and we test it. So it can lead to a law, but it can also eventually, usually the law comes first. And then if you do enough experiments, maybe in the back of your mind to say, wait a minute, I think that the law works because of this. This is why it works. Then you develop a theory about why the process works the way it does. And usually a theory requires a model. That is something that you can either hold in your hand, or some models are mathematical. And the reason you want a model is because if you have a model, you can change it. If you change the model just a little bit and run the experiment again with your changed model, what happens? And with that information, it informs your theory. So is my theory good enough? Does the model explain things as they should be? Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It tries to explain why. And when you know why something happens, that gives you a wider world. In other words, you can imagine things that you couldn't possibly observe in nature. Okay. So which of the steps in the scientific method is missing from the following situation? Okay, you're holding a balloon. You quickly inhale some of the gas inside the balloon. Everybody's done this, right? And then you start speaking funny with a high-pitched voice. He then asks you to determine what gas was inside the balloon that he inhaled. Based on your observations, you conclude that the gas must be helium. Now, what's missing from this process? You made an observation, right? But how did you reach your conclusion? How could you possibly say that helium was there when you didn't develop a hypothesis and test it, right? So the problem, yeah, the problem was stated. You made an observation, certainly. The problem is stated because there's a question. You did not formulate a hypothesis. Well, maybe you did formulate a hypothesis. Well, I don't see a hypothesis in there. What gas was inside the balloon based on your observations? Okay, this could be considered part of the hypothesis, except it says conclude, right? So I would say you didn't actually formulate a hypothesis and definitely didn't perform an experiment, right? So those are missing from this situation. Now, this also illustrates one other thing about taking a course, and particularly for exams, called a word problem. Word problems are built to confuse, because if the student doesn't understand the concepts, then a word problem is going to twist their heads around backwards. So what you need to do when you get a word problem, faced with a word problem, you got to look for the question. What is the problem asking? Then you go into the word problem and say, is there information in here that I need to answer the question? Because word problems are notorious for blowing blue smoke in your face. And you got to pick out the information that you need to solve the problem. Sometimes the information is not in the problem itself. It's in some other source, like a periodic table or formulas that you've memorized or you have available in that useful information, right? So you got to know when you ask the question, it should inform you as to whether you can find the information in the problem or you need also to go to external sources. Okay. Chemistry is a different language, completely different language. It might be in English, it might be in German, it might be in Swedish, but there are aspects of chemistry that are common in any language. You have to learn the vocabulary. So what's the vocabulary? The vocabulary is right here. Periodic table. You don't build anything in chemistry without knowing the symbols. Right? So you have to memorize the symbols first. And what I've done is I've created a periodic table, and I have to be sure that it's in your in Blackboard. I'll confirm that. Let me make myself a note because I don't remember seeing it when we went through there. Chem 100. I call it know these elements. And you'll notice, let's see, I don't have it ready to share, so I'm going to have to just show you here. You'll notice that in this version, I've surrounded symbols with red lines. Those are the only ones that you need to memorize. So if it doesn't have a red line around it, you don't have to memorize it. Now, it doesn't say what the symbol represents, so you're going to have to look those up. There are some other things in here that are of interest, and they've got blue highlights on them. Those blue highlights reference elements that are diatomic at 1 atmosphere pressure and room temperature. Now, I'll explain what that is later, but that just explains how this is set up. So about half of them have red lines around them. You need to learn those. I have students that go out and find flashcards on the internet and buy the flashcards. They got the symbol on one side, the name on the other, and they just flash them until they've memorized them. I would prefer to get a deck of, let's see, a deck of index cards and go through, write the symbol on one side, write the name on the other. The process of making the cards will start to ingrain those symbols in your mind. And then once you get them made, you can use them to memorize the symbols. So I would start that immediately. Start memorizing those symbols, because the one thing about chemistry is it's best taken in small doses. Study for a little while, then go away. Come back and see how much you remember. Study the things that you've forgotten, come up. So taken in small doses, and that's true for a lot of topics, right? A lot of subjects that you may study, but particularly chemistry and the sciences in particular. It's best taken in small doses and accumulate memory, memorize things, accumulate that memory. And then once you have those things here in your long-term memory, then you can use them to solve problems. Until they're in your memory and easily accessible, you can't solve problems. That's why I give you lots of problems to work, practice problems. Homework, those documents, review documents, will give you lots of problems to work. Now, I understand that you're going to have limitations on time. If you have other family and work issues, but the more you work problems, the better you feel, the more comfortable you'll feel with chemistry. Okay, so that's the slideshow, and good. We're finished with time left over. Okay, so let me get this out of my way. And here we are. Stop the screen sharing. Any questions about the topic or about the course in general? When I take these videos, I will process the video so it will be split screen, like you're looking at during the meeting. It'll have me on one side and it'll have the shared screen on the other side. So it should look similar to what you've seen already. Okay, so we only had, let's see, actually, we're only missing one student that was supposed to be here in the Zoom session. The other students are transplants from the web course, so they technically don't have to show up in person. But as always, you're welcome to show up if you're web-based. So when they see this video, that's the reason I'm saying it here. You don't need to hear it, but if you're formerly a web-based student, you're welcome to show up during the Zoom session, or you can look at the recordings. Okay, so I need to do that, and I need to correct the syllabus for side by side. There we go. Okay, so I'll see you again on Thursday morning, and we'll pick it up with chapter 2. Let's see, 10:40? Oh, we've got till 10:50, so I'm early. So we can talk about anything you want to, or if you've heard enough, you're present, and you you can leave if you want. Oh, by the way, if in the future I run long and there's no buffer day left for that topic, so that I can stop and continue at another session, then what I will do is I will continue lecturing on that topic until it's done and it's recorded. And if it goes past our meeting time, then and you have to go, then that's fine. You can leave, and I'll finish it, post the video, and you can come back and see what the extra that I missed. I tend to do that. If I get long-winded, then this recording is good to have, because it'll pick up that stuff that you may have missed. All right. So I guess we're done for today, and we'll see you again on Thursday.
Yes, sir. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take it easy.